the Bedford VAL, probably the most well-known tri-axle twin-steer chassis of all time. But twin-steer buses and coaches were in service decades before the Bedford VAL ever existed. This is the story of the little-known twin-steer buses and coaches that existed before the Bedford VAL. Hi, this is Jeffrey. Now, many of you are probably familiar with the Bedford VAL, which was the most famous, most well-known tri-axle twin-steer coach that was ever produced. Now, what's interesting to know is that for decades before the Bedford VAL ever existed, there were numerous other twin-steer coaches and buses in use in the UK. And so that's what we're going to look at in this video. Twin-steer buses and coaches that existed before the Bedford VAL. Plus, we are also going to look at two concept buses that were going to be of the twin-steer variety, but that never made it out of the concept stage. So let's get started in taking a look at these really great twin-steer buses of the UK. This survey of non-Bedford VAL twin-steer buses and coaches spans 1922 to 1975 and comprises the following. Number 1, Bradford City Tramways Trolleybus number 522 of 1922. Number 2, the Leyland New and Panda of 1937 to 1939. Number 3, London Transport X7 Trolleybus of 1939. Number 4, Northern Ireland Road Transport Observation Coaches of 1948. Number 5, City Coaches Front Trailing Axle Coach of 1948. Number 6, Leyland Commuter Bus Concept Bus of 1967. And number 7, London Transport XRM Design of 1975. Interestingly enough, what is believed to be the first twin-steer transport vehicle was not a bus or coach, but a trolleybus. Number 522 was constructed in 1922 by Bradford City Tramways on a Kirkstall Forge chassis frame. It was one of the first, and possibly the second, closed-top trolleybus in the world after Bradford number 521 of 1920. Number 522 was withdrawn in 1927. The next opportunity for a tri-axle twin-steer transport vehicle was developed during the late 1930s, a period of peak activity for Britain's leading bus and truck builder Leyland, which was developing rear-engined buses and eight-wheel trucks at the same time. What is quite striking about the New and Panda is that the driving force behind them came from the close relationship between Leyland and the Alexander Operating Company in Scotland. There apparently were no formal agreements, but both entities were pushing the limits of bus technology, and their top managers met at Leyland every month to exchange ideas, which in this case were about increasing carrying capacity. Work began in 1936 on two new prototypes for Alexander, a service bus and a service coach, both with a door-forward layout. Alexander built the 40-seat bodies, which drew on contemporary American front-end styling. They were completed in 1937, and the coach was exhibited at the first commercial motor show of that year, held at the New Earl's Court Hall. These would come to be known as Type TEP1. Alexander did not buy them until 1939, by which time work began on the solitary Panda. The chassis of the Panda, of wheel-forward layout, was prepared for use in 1940, and its 45-seat center entrance Alexander body was completed in 1941. Neither was popular with crews. The News were withdrawn in 1945. The Panda was removed from service in 1946, the year after a schoolgirl unfortunately died after being trapped on the wrong side of its folding doors and falling onto the road. All three had second lives, with one of the News rebuilt with four wheels. The war halted the continuation of both projects. The Tilling coach fleet ordered 2 news, but then canceled them. The City Coach Company bought 1 new and 5 wheel-forward TEC2 special chassis, all with center entrance duple bodies for its London to Southend service. The front grille on the TEC2 buses were different from the more Art Deco-styled grille on the earlier TEP coach. A total of 8 news were built. A change to the regulations allowing a 30-foot public service vehicle on 2 axles meant that the idea was soon dropped. A Panda for London Transport's Green Line fleet never left the drawing board. London Transport tested a twin-steer trolleybus in 1939. This trolleybus, like the Panda, was a solitary unit. It was fleet number 1671, and images show it operating on routes 607 and 655. It was a chassisless vehicle known as Class X7. Supposedly, drivers did not like it due to its hard steering. It was withdrawn and scrapped in 1955. There were also observation coaches of the twin-steer variety. 2 twin-steer Leyland Tiger PS210s were built for the Northern Ireland Road Transport Board and Ulster Transport in 1948, but their second trailing axles were removed after they ceased to be legally necessary. All 3 were eventually rebuilt and ending up as half-cab double-deckers. Although both coaches were quite similar, they differed in front-end details, such as their grilles. In 1947 to 1948, 3 Leyland PS211 heaver-bodied C39C coaches with a small-wheeled trailing axle fitted to overcome length restrictions were built for City Coach, who also owned 6 news. The trailing axle, similar to the one on the Northern Ireland coach, was eventually removed when the laws concerning weight and length were altered. The coach ended its days with Barton rebodied as a double-decker. City coaches had it numbered G7, classing it, actually, as one of their Leyland news. In 1965, Leyland embarked upon its new bus project called International. The resulting mock-up that was shown to government and bus industry officials, including then UK Minister of Transport Barbara Castle in 1967, was codenamed Commuter Bus, and in appearance offered a foretaste of the Leyland National. It was, however, a work in progress and had some fundamental features that, although clever, were deemed impractical by the operators it hoped would buy such a vehicle. Key among these was that in order to keep the floor as low as possible, its step-free internal layout anticipated the low-floor designs that would become available in the UK nearly 30 years later. It had small-dimension wheels. On full-length models, that meant 8 wheels instead of 4 larger ones, with a twin-steer arrangement on the front axles. But a drawback was that tire and brake wear was greater. A further disadvantage was that the double-wheel boxes required more seats to face inwards rather than forwards, an arrangement that is less safe for passengers and goes against generations of passengers' preference to sit in the direction of travel. So as Leyland moved on to what became FPB7, the letters stood for Forward Project Bus, the commuter bus structure would be redesigned to accommodate a more conventional 4-wheel driveline, which would eventually become the Leyland National. In 1973, after London Transport's unhappy experience with buses bought for one-man conversion, it was believed desirable for LT to look into the possibility of designing a bus to meet its own requirements, especially if the bus grant requirement to purchase standard buses was eventually going to be lifted. This led to the XRM project. While it never got off the drawing board, it provides a glimpse into LT's thinking at the time. Design work got underway in 1975, and the result was a concept for a 4-axle twin-steer double-decker bus that also had elements in common with the commuter bus. LT went so far as to purchase a Bedford VAL for braking and steering research on twin-axle vehicles. The original design called for a 4-axle vehicle that was 32 feet 8 inches long by 8 feet 2.5 inches wide and would have mainly longitudinal seats on the lower deck. After much debate, the design was revised to a more conventional 2-axle layout. But by 1980, the revised XRM design had much in common with the MCW Metrobus and the Leyland Titan, and given the recession in the bus industry at the time, it was decided to drop the project in favor of other models already proven reliable at the time. So, there it is, the story of twin-steer buses built in the UK before the Bedford VAL. Now, I am not claiming that I know every single twin-steer bus or coach that was produced in the UK before the Bedford VAL appeared in 1962. So if you know of any others, just let us know in the comments. And if there's enough of them, maybe I will do a follow-up video. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this look at twin-steer buses that existed before the Bedford VAL. And thank you so much for watching, and have a great day. Bye.